Today we're going to get into something that's, well, it's really tough. What are we supposed to do when the youngest people in our society commit the most serious crimes? It's a question that really makes you think about what justice even means. So let's try to unpack this whole thing together. Just look at this number for a second. 49.5%. On its own, it's already kind of alarming, right? But what it actually represents, that's where things get really serious. That's right. In 2022, nearly half, almost 1 out of every 2, crimes committed by young people in India were violent. And we're not talking about shoplifting here. We are talking about the heavy stuff: murder, assault, robbery, really serious offenses. And here's the real twist, the paradox we're going to dig into. The total number of kids getting into trouble with the law is actually going down, but the crimes they are committing are getting way, way more violent. So what on earth is going on here? Okay, so first things first, we've got to break down this pretty disturbing trend. Let's follow the data and see what it tells us. Wow, just look at the jump on this chart. In only 6 years, just 6 years, the slice of juvenile crime that's violent shot up from less than a third to nearly half. That is an incredibly fast and frankly pretty scary acceleration. So let's be super clear on this. The main takeaway isn't that more kids are committing crimes. It's that we're seeing this intense concentration of violence. It seems a smaller group of young people are responsible for a bigger and bigger share of violent acts. And that makes figuring out why even more critical. Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question. Why? Why is this happening? To try and get some answers, we're going to look at 2 completely different parts of the world, a corner of the UK and the nation of India, and see if there's any common thread. All right, so let's start in Lancashire. In the UK, they have this really fascinating way of looking at things. They treat crime kind of like a public health problem, not just something for the police to deal with. And they've identified these social determinants, things like rough childhoods, bad housing, not having enough money, as the deep-rooted causes that make crime more likely to happen in the first place. Okay, now let's jump halfway across the planet and look at the factors that studies point to in India. You've got dysfunctional homes, peer pressure, poverty, tough neighborhoods, drug problems, seeing a lot of violence in the media. As I'm reading this list, does any of it sound familiar? Yeah, the overlap it's just right there, isn't it? Broken homes, poverty, tough environments. It's the same basic stuff. It really suggests that the things that push kids toward crime aren't specific to one country or culture. They're tragically and deeply universal. So if the root problems are basically the same everywhere, what about the solutions? Well, this is where things really split. It's where societies have to make a choice between 2 totally different ways of thinking. Do you try to prevent the crime, or do you punish the criminal? So that Lancashire model, it's all about prevention. The idea is simple. If you can help with the root causes, the poverty, the trauma, you can actually stop crime before it starts. It's a long game strategy, but the real question is, did it work? And the numbers say, yeah, it seems like it did. Between 2021 and 2024, they saw a 6% drop in all crime. By putting money and effort into communities and early support, they actually managed to bend the curve down. But this is where the prevention idea runs into a brick wall. What do you do when all the prevention in the world fails, and a kid commits a crime that is just so brutal, so shocking, that people are screaming for justice, not just rehab? This is where the debate gets white hot. This quote from India's Supreme Court just cuts right to the heart of it. After some truly horrific crimes that shook the entire country, like the Kathua case, even the highest court started asking, is a system that's all about rehabilitation actually doing its job to protect people? And this wasn't just talk. Those worries led to a huge change in India's law. Now, kids between 16 and 18 who commit these awful crimes can actually be moved into the adult system, where, let's be honest, the punishments are much, much tougher. It was a massive pivot away from a pure rehabilitation focus. So here it is, the 2 philosophies, right next to each other. The preventative side sees a broken kid who can still be helped. The punitive side sees a dangerous act that needs a serious response to protect everyone else. They're both aiming for a safer society, but wow, they're going about it in completely different ways. And this whole fight, it's not just some abstract legal thing. It really forces all of us to ask some fundamental questions about what we value and what we really owe our kids. Because this isn't a UK thing or an India thing. Every single country, every community has to figure out where they stand on this. How do you balance compassion with accountability? How do you weigh the hope of changing a young life against the immediate need to keep people safe? And you know those abstract debates? They get very real very fast when they're hit with a number like this one. 67%. In the Indian state of Jharkhand, 2 out of every 3 crimes committed by juveniles were violent. 2 out of 3. When you're a community and you feel like you are under siege from that level of youth violence, well, the calls for a tougher, more punitive approach can get incredibly loud. The talk about long-term prevention can easily get drowned out by people's fear and their demand for safety right now. So we're left with these incredibly tough questions. How do we keep people safe? How do we fix broken kids? Is it even possible to do both at the same time? And really, is justice for a 17-year-old the same thing as justice for a 27-year-old? In the end, there are no simple answers here. There are just really difficult choices that say a lot about our priorities. Is our number one goal to heal the kid who did wrong? Or is it to protect the community and get justice for the victim? The path we pick really defines who we are as a society. So that's the question I want to leave you with. When you're facing that ultimate test, a kid who commits a truly adult crime, where should society's priority lie? What should be our main goal, punishment or rehabilitation?